Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife. From women being potentially required now to register for the draft, new benefits for nursing moms, and Balfour Beatty, a military housing company, is under investigation again. There's a lot been going on, and we're going to touch on those things as well as jump back and refresh on new things going on with topics we've discussed in the past. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. So first things first, we're going to recap a couple of things that I have covered previously and just give you some updates on what is new. And the juicy one is the situation with Balfour Beatty. And anyone who's been listening to the podcast for a while has probably caught my previous sentiments regarding the Balfour Beatty company. They do a lot of the military housing on military installations, and they were convicted of fraud in a case brought by the United States Air Force. They're now under investigation, including congressional scrutiny at Army installations. And an inside source of mine informed me that there's actually been Congress members touring military housing to get a better understanding at the absolute massive mishandling that the Balfour Beatty Company has done in regards to their military housing administration. And having lived in Balfour Beatty administrated housing, I can tell you they are a nightmare. At least they were for us. So I'm really grateful to hear that there is more follow-up getting done. Maybe eventually we can actually have livable housing for United States military personnel and their families on posts and bases and military installations everywhere. So I'm super thrilled about that, but that is definitely a developing case and situation. So we'll see where it goes. The other thing is with the Title IX, I did a whole entire episode breakdown. I will link that in the description for this episode. But basically, there has been pushback to the new Title IX policies that would put students at risk because of potential harm, whether by injury or other circumstances. And there are 9 states as of right now that are taking the administration to court over this. And in addition to those 9 states, 70 Congress members have put forth a bill to help step back the problematic proposals and policies that have been put in place by the current administration. And again, I did an entire breakdown on this new Title IX changes that have come into effect. So go check that out. The link will be in the description below if you want to get a better background on what's going on. But I'm just grateful that people are taking a stand for the safety of their children, because Title IX was designed for a reason, to give girls a safe space in locker rooms and bathrooms on athletic teams, to provide them with opportunities. We fought so long for these rights and recognitions, and to be losing them at this point is just a complete tragedy. And I am surprised that there's not more people up in arms and aware about what's going on. So spread the news. Let's contact our Congress people. Let's make our voices heard. And as a parent with children, this is something I am incredibly passionate about. That said, I'm going to actually be saying very similar things in that regards with some of this stuff. If you have an opinion based on the articles and things that I am presenting, contact your Congress people. Let them know. Let them know, because sometimes it feels like as military families, we just kind of are quiet and we take it and we just sit there and, stiff upper lip sort of thing. We have the right to be heard. So let's disagree appropriately and politely. We can do that. I know you can. Anyway, moving on to another article that I found, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly, but evidently, an Army colonel was convicted of stealing $62,000 during COVID by fraud. Evidently, he was claiming that he needed separation pay and all this sort of stuff because his family lived in a different place and he was living somewhere else. And he got people to like cover for him. It was a whole thing. So, yeah, that's not so great. Um, it's honestly really shocking to see that. It is Army Reserve Colonel Reese Roberts. And yeah, he pled guilty to defrauding the United States Army on Tuesday. I'm just going to say this. I'm not going to dig into a lot about this guy and what he did and all of that. I'm just going to say, be honest, people. Be honest. When you're PCSing, be honest about your receipts. Don't fake anything. It's not worth it. And it's not worth the a little bit of extra money you might get or a lot of extra money you might get, especially if it ends up ruining your life and your career and your family's lives. Just don't do it. Honesty is always the best policy. So that's what I'm going to say. And we're just going to move on that one. The next thing that I got super excited about when I saw was an article regarding some new things. And we're talking about don't defraud the government. So, people, when I talk about this, let's be honest in how we use this. Let's not abuse the system. If we want these privileges and these benefits, let's treat them respect and let's do it the right way. But breastfeeding troops can now recoup the cost of shipping breast milk during PCS moves. So, and there's been a addendum basically added on. So when you're going through a PCS, permanent change of station, for anyone who doesn't know what PCS means, you can be reimbursed up to $1,000 to the cost of shipping your breast milk back to your child, because sometimes in the process of PCSing, there you have to like go ahead and get things established and whatnot. So that is awesome, because previously there used to be just out of pocket costs for breastfeeding parents when they were separated from their kids. Now they won't have to do it. So I think that's fabulous. It took effect back in on May 24th, which I didn't hear about it until recently. So I really wanted there was another policy enacted evidently back in 2022. So I'm just wanting to let you guys all know about this. The rule only applies to service members who are breastfeeding their children up to 12 months old. So the troops are responsible for making their own arrangements. They'll have to figure out the transportation process themselves, but the reimbursement is possible. So at least you won't have that extra out of pocket expense. I know that this is going to be useful and utilized by service members who are in this position. I really don't know if it's going to be a ton of people, but at the same time, it's just nice. It's nice when these things are possible. So please, let's do this with integrity and dignity and use the benefit as it was intended and not take advantage of it. But I'm super excited. I think this will be a wonderful help. And I really noticed a huge push by the military to be very supportive of breastfeeding, especially after that shortage of formula that we had. That huge shortage of formula was a real scare for a lot of military families and military installations, because a lot of just a lot would supplement and use formula. And so when that was no longer an option, there was a huge encouragement to utilize the lactation consultants that the military and TRICARE provides, and to get pumps to military service members and spouses of service members. So all of these different support systems that the military is putting into place have a place and are a benefit and are really, really helpful. Now, that said, I'm going to hit on a topic that went viral. And I looked it up everywhere, and it was really hard to find very specific information in regards to this topic. It was kept getting labeled as misinformation, and I understand why. They're trying not to scare people because, that scary tactics are just never appropriate. We can be adults and have adult discussions. However, here's what happened. So, there have been ever since 2013 and I'm talking about the whole draft thing, people, so buckle up. We're talking about draft. There is not a draft in place. There has not been a draft in place since the 70s. Drafts in the United States can and do occur. However, they do not happen frequently, and they have not happened recently. Okay? Okay. It's been a hot minute, people, so let's just cool our jets. Second, ever since, and I'm circling back to what I said before, but ever since 2013, when they made the change so that females could be in combat positions, ever since then, there have been people saying that, well, if we're fine with women in combat positions, then why on earth can't women be drafted? Women have every other ability out there, every other perk, benefit, privilege, whatever, but they don't have the responsibility of signing up for selective services so that they are capable of being drafted. And there has been a couple different instances where people have tried to push through amendments or different things that would allow for women to be drafted. However, none of those things have come to fruition, and another one is on the table. So the Arms Committee, so the National Defense Authorization Act has been on the table, and there were changes and things added to it. One of them was the potential for women to be able to be drafted. And for the first time, there was it was the majority. It was a significant majority voted for that to be added onto it. Now, it's not a done deal. It's in committee. The committee voted. They added it to the oh gosh, I just said it. The National Defense Authorization Act. So it's been added onto this year's National Defense Authorization Act as of right now in committee. It is not law. It is not a thing yet. So we still have a chance to make our voices heard. If you are not comfortable with women being able to be drafted or required to sign up for selective service, which another thing they talked about was that has been being pushed around, and I'm not sure where it's at with this. I wasn't actually able to get a copy. I was looking for it. I was having a hard time coming up with a current iteration of what this year's Defense Act Authorization Act says. So pardon me for that. I will keep working on that. But anyway, the other thing they've talked about is having an auto enrollment thing for selective services for men. I mean, they've got to register anyway, so I don't see why auto enrollment would be terrifying people, but I know people who've asked me because they know I have this podcast, that we're a military family, that I tend to keep up on this stuff, and they are really, really concerned. And I just have to tell them, your son's going to have to sign up anyway, unless he wants to dodge it, which I don't recommend. So I'm not understanding why an auto setup is a big deal, but I'm going to look into it. And I am going to look into it, and I'm still looking into it. This is the main thing I saw when I started digging into it. Honestly, I kind of saw this coming. I did. When everything happened back in 2013, I had a feeling that if we're asking for all of these privileges, if we're asking for all these opportunities, if we want to be treated the same, then a natural progression of that concept of being treated the same as men is going to be us being added to the draft. And if you think about it, a lot of different militaries require women to serve in the military. Other countries do it. Israel has that. That's just the one that popped into my head. I think, don't quote me on this. I think the Swiss do as well, but there are other countries that require this, and I've discussed that before. Like this is a thing in other places. So why did we think it was never going to be a thing here? So, as I always say, if you have an opinion and you want your voice to be heard, get a hold of your congressperson, write them an email, call them, let them know how you feel about this. I don't particularly feel like women should be drafted. I feel like because the next generation is dependent on women being mothers and having kids, and that is a thing you can't do in a combat zone. The military has the policy where you're not supposed to get pregnant while you're deployed. So, and I get that. That's a good rule. I support that rule. Makes sense. But that just complicates things if we so I feel like because we still have some rules in place like that, there's still some logical reasons why women should not be part of selective service. That's me. My take. Mostly also I the thing is that there's still going to be medical exemptions, there's still going to be other things. I am pretty sure that, I mean, I hope, I sincerely, genuinely hope that if you are a mom with like 3 kids, they're not going to try to draft you just because you're like in your 30s, or your 20s. So we'll have to see. But if you want to have your voice heard, you can. We live in a republic. We have representatives. They're supposed to represent us. I hear people complain all the time that our politicians aren't doing what we want them to and they're not representing us. When's the last time you got a hold of your congressperson? When's the last time you wrote them an email or called them? Let them know what you think about a certain topic and in a polite way, people. Disagree appropriately. Communicate yourself like an adult. We can put civility back into civil discourse, but we need to have civil discourse. We need to have communication. Just because they're a representative doesn't mean we can't approach them in a polite, respectful way through the appropriate channels, people, appropriate channels, and express ourselves. In fact, we should be doing that. And we should be comfortable doing that. We should know how to do that. So, that is my little encouragement for you guys this week. If one of these topics has you concerned, or you would like to contact your congressperson about them, do it. Look it up. Be respectful. Be polite. Communicate clearly how you feel. Sometimes I have called and said, "Hey, good job. Keep up the good work. Fight the good fight. I like what you're doing." And that is probably something they don't get often. So that's a good thing to do too. If we are upset about the way our system is working, then we need to be involved in the solution. So, lots coming up. I've got different things going on with the channel and interviews and whatnot. I will be taking that break in July because family time is important. And my kids are growing too fast. I need to spend some quality time with them. So, all of that said, I'm going to just encourage you guys, be the good that you want to see in the world. Let's be that light. Let's do that. Let's get involved. Whether it's at your kid's school, join the PTA, in your congregation, in your family readiness group, SFRG, whatever they call it now, because they keep changing the names on us. Let's be involved. Let's build community. And you'll understand why I'm all on this whole community and civility thing. I've been on this kick for a while, but I've got a really great, really great book that I'm going to review for you guys. I'm going to get you all the information. So, spoiler, some great stuff coming. And I have had people reach out to me about wanting to get information out on the podcast, do interviews, collaborations. I will be getting back to you guys. It's been a bit of a struggle this summer with the broken arm and baby cuteness turning into a toddler who toddlers like no other. And my kids run in all different directions because life and summer. So I will do my best to get back to you guys. Please be patient with me. Feel free to contact me with ideas, suggestions, recommendations. Or if there's a research study you want me to look into, if there is a bill in Congress that affects the military you want me to read, I will do the work and read them for you if I will fit them in the best I can. So please let me know what's on your mind. And that's part of what got into this episode was things that people brought to me. Like I said, one of them, I have an inside source who approached me and said, hey, you need to know this is going on. And someone else approached me and said, hey, I'm worried about this. What should I know? So please keep doing that. Keep sending me that stuff. Keep being awesome because you guys are. And I genuinely really appreciate the feedback and the input. So let's be the good that we want to see in the world. And with that, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you've been listening to Life of a Military Wife.